Hello and welcome to an episode of 𝗟𝗲𝘁 Spotlight. I'm your host, Susan Choi. This week we are covering biological health. That's a term to describe the physical aging of your body rather than your numerical age. And more people than ever are focusing on doing whatever they can to reverse the biological aging process. But are there methods that actually work? To learn more about this topic, I'd like to welcome Dr. Francis Palmer, noted plastic surgeon and author of the book, What's Your Number? Dr. Palmer, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Susan. Great to be here.
All right, let's get it started. Can you explain to us what is the difference between biological age and chronological age?
Yeah, look, I think I'll spell it out right from the beginning. So we all hear 60 is the new 40, 70 is the new 50, and so on, but they don't explain what that means. What that means is a 60-year-old has a biological age that's 40 and a chronological age that's 60. You see where that's advantageous and not the opposite, where you're a 40-year-old chronologically and your body's functioning at a biological age that's 60 years old.
So in terms of, biological age, talk to us about, cellular health. Can you describe like the whole concept behind this?
Yeah, so I think of it this way: is there's certain things that dictate how well we're going to live, and then I think I like to talk about health span, not longevity, because living to be 150 frail and diseased is not necessarily optimal. Instead, you want to live in an optimal state of health, and so it's really about how long your health span is. A way to sort of extrapolate that is to look at biological age. The difference in biological age is at what age level are your cells functioning, as opposed to your chronological age, which is just today's date minus your birth date, and that's how old you are. There are multiple things that will impact that, and I put them in three main buckets. There's genetic, there's biological, and then there's environmental. Some things we can't change. Your DNA is your blueprint of how your cells work, and you can't do anything about it. It is what it is. However, there's more to the story, because if that's all there was, we wouldn't have a conversation. I'd say, well, look, it's whatever your genetic makeup is, and that's all you can do. But you can impact the biological and the environmental. So biological would mean, are there any existing disease states? Cancer, autoimmune disease, hypertension, heart disease, that really impact at what level your cells are functioning and therefore your biological age and your health span. And that can include whether or not you have access, your body, your cells, to the particular compounds and minerals that they need to properly function. Calcium AKG is a good example, and we can talk about that later. And then finally, the environmental, and this is where we all talk about it. It is, do you do things that put your cells at risk? And in other words, are you a smoker, or do you lead a sedentary lifestyle where you don't have activity? Do you not pay attention to your diet, despite the fact that historically you may predispose to diabetes and some other things? And I think that's sort of the category where we all talk about interventions. And some of the interventions, as you know, get quite extreme. And I have to laugh as a physician. I think they become borderline ridiculous.
That is exactly my next question. Nice dovetail into it. From where you stand as a health expert, Dr. Palmer, what are some of examples of the extreme ways people are trying out in order to reduce their biological age, reverse that biological aging process?
Well, there's some that I think are getting, unbelievable headlines, like somebody who's spending millions and millions of dollars. Think about that. Millions and millions of dollars trying all kinds of compounds, including dangerous drugs, to see if hopefully it will reduce their biological age. My reply to that is, are you serious? I mean, I've been in development for 30 years for different biopharma, pharma, nutraceutical, medical device companies. And at the end of the day, you need something that the average person can use and apply. That's not applicable. I call that an N of one. Works for you, fantastic. But I mean, come on, it's not gonna work for anybody else. The other is taking handfuls of supplements. This sort of plays into the way we all act. If something works a little bit, maybe I should do a whole lot more of that. And the answer to that is there are studies that show that that's not the right approach. So handfuls of supplements, you have no idea what's doing what. The scientific method says if you're going to look at something, you change none of the other variables except the thing that you're examining, and taking handfuls of substance, you have no idea to tell what's doing what or whether or not it's even beneficial. And then there's some behavioral things. Well, I'm going to starve myself. Really? Are you going to starve yourself for 3 decades or 4 decades or whatever? Come on, that's ridiculous. Or I can only eat this kind of food, but I can't eat that kind of food. Or I'm going to fast for 23 hours, taking no account into what your body metabolism is going to do when your brain needs glucose immediately, because what it's going to do is going to tear down your muscle. It's not going to take the fat because that takes much longer to do. So there's examples about this stuff. So I think the internet is a wonderful thing, but I think you really need to take a moment, pause, and say to yourself, does this sound ridiculous? Yes or no? If it does, forget it. It probably is ridiculous.
Sounds like a lot of common sense to me. Okay, Dr. Palmer, let's get into a very important term that you referred to earlier in our conversation, calcium AKG. Tell us, what is this and why is it so significant in this conversation about biological aging?
Yeah, like a lot of things, it's been around forever. So probably 40, 50 years, AKG has been around, and bodybuilders first found it because they would do incredibly strenuous workouts. And when you do that, you tear down your muscle to build a bigger, stronger muscle. But they found that taking AKG would help their muscles actually heal faster. And then a lot of research has been done since then and is accelerating in looking at different species, mice, including people, because they found that it is a key essential component of every cell in your body to make energy. Every cell in your body to make energy, which you need to do, needs AKG. Now that sounds great. The problem is you get AKG when you're born, and then you start to lose it. By the time you're 40, it starts decreasing. And if you don't take a supplement that's absorbable, and I'll talk about that in a second, by the time you're 80, you could have 1/10. So if you just take everything that I just said and say, well, why do we feel more tired as we age? Well, if the main ingredient that allows you to have energy at every cellular level is 1/10 of it was when you were younger, to me, that makes common sense. It becomes a little more complicated because you don't get AKG in the food that you eat. So you can't eat it. You have to take a supplement. And research is suggesting that the supplement has to target and be released in the small intestines. And a calcium version, not a potassium version or some other version of AKG that's out there readily available, is not the one that's being tested that shows an increase in biological age. It's the time release. Why time release? Because you don't want it to be released in the stomach. You want it to get to the small intestines where it's a favorable environment to be absorbed. So you actually get levels in your bloodstream to the cells. They make energy for you. And so it has to be in the calcium. It doesn't have to be, but the most effective one seems to be the calcium form in a time release version.
Very, very interesting. And thank you for answering the question I was going to ask. What can you eat? Can you eat foods that can boost the calcium AKG? You just said it's more effective as it's effective as a supplement. And thank you for the explanation about the process of how it should work properly. So, Dr. Palmer, from your research, from your all the work that you've done, I mean, a lot of our audience would want to know, so is it effective? Have you seen that it is effective if you take a supplement to increase the levels of calcium AKG in your body? Is it effective in reversing biological aging?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the golden ring, right? That's the $1 million question to ask. And so there is research that supports this, and there's more ongoing research. But it started looking at, again, mice, which is reasonable to do if you're going to look at its effect in humans following up, which is what was done. So they saw that it increased the longevity a little bit in mice, but what it really did was it reduced their biological age or improved the health span. And then those studies, real world data studies, were done to show humans measuring the biological age first, taking the supplement for 7 months, 6 months, whatever it was, and then a reduction in biological age by an average of 7 years. And this is done in multiple research studies. And all of these, your viewers can go to Rejuvan, REJUVANT.com/science and see all these research papers. The question I think that researchers are now looking at, they're saying, okay, there's evidence that shows that AKG, especially in the calcium time release form, which is only available, the one company has a patent on it, so it's only available there. But saying that, okay, it does that. So now why does it do it? The metabolism of a human is so incredibly complex. It's something that's going to take a while to figure out exactly what is the pathways, what are the pathways that the calcium AKG is affecting it, and so on and so on. But for anybody that doesn't want to sit around and wait for clarification at that level for 10 or 15 years, and I don't see why you need it, if you see a real world study data on something that is incredibly safe and proven effective, like, I don't know, I'm not sure why you would wait that long.
All right, Dr. Francis Palmer, plastic surgeon and author of the book, What's Your Number? Dr. Palmer, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And for more of our great content, you can always check out this playlist. Till next time, I'm Susan Choi. Take care.